Okay, and welcome to the show. This upload is coming to you November 30th, 2016, and you're listening to the Post Money Plan podcast. Today's episode is hosted by myself, Dallas Post, the founder of the Post Money Plan, and I have Cameryn with me. Cameryn is a high school student who's preparing to go to college, so in today's episode, we'll be interviewing her and asking her a few questions to get a perspective of how a high school student thinks about money. Welcome to the show, Cameryn.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a 16-year-old junior in high school. I am currently preparing for college for the application process. I'm working a couple hours a week, driving, all of that kind of stuff that a normal 16-year-old would be doing.
Okay. And what has your work experience been so far?
I work about 12 hours each week. Varies a little bit week to week. But I work at a local farmer's market, just in the storefront working as cashier and occasionally working in the office. I help manage the store in the evenings.
Okay. So you're in the position where you actually already have some work experience. Some high school students don't even start working until they go to college and realize that they have to get a job.
Yeah.
And how long did you say you've been working now?
Been working almost 8 months.
Okay. And would you say you've had to be responsible for any amount of money yet?
I would say so. One of the things that my family and I decided when I started driving was that I was going to be responsible for a portion of the car insurance, and that was going to be added to our family plan and for my gas each month. So I've had to plan out my money and make sure that I have enough to pay for the car insurance and enough to pay for gas each month.
Okay, so they're just preparing you for when you go off on your own and making sure that you're having a little bit of responsibility on your own managing money?
Correct.
Okay. So then, what do you think you've learned from that experience so far?
I think it's been a very valuable experience, and I think that it's one that a lot of kids should experience before they go off to college. One of the main factors in moving off to college and having your own place to live and that kind of thing is being able to manage your own money, being able to pay your own bills, be responsible for the things that you need in life, making sure that you have the money to do so. So I think it's important, and I think it's been valuable for me to start having a portion of the responsibility that I'll be having in college and then after college and moving forward into adult life.
So I think that's funny because it's a very mature perspective that I would say most 16-year-olds probably do not have.
I would agree with that.
But I think that puts you well ahead of the pack and in a good position to be making the decisions that are going to be of benefit to you in the long run.
Thank you.
So then, since you're in the thick of things in school right now, in high school, you are more close to the actual matter. What would you say you've been taught about personal finance and money management so far in school?
Sadly, I'd have to say that I haven't been taught much to anything. I think that the only money management that I have been taught and what we have discussed was actually in elementary school in a specialized class that I took, where we talked a slight bit about the importance of budgeting or how to balance a checkbook, little things like that. But as we've progressed on, or as I've progressed on and gone through middle school and now in high school, I can say that I haven't really been taught much at all about the importance of managing money.
That's interesting. All the way back in elementary school, you went over balancing a checkbook and that kind of stuff?
I believe it was in 4th grade. I had a special teacher who brought some of the kids out of a class, and we learned different life skills and that kind of thing. And we learned how to balance a checkbook, write checks, and how to balance accounts when we were in 4th grade. But that is definitely the extent of my knowledge.
So nothing in high school?
I don't believe so. Not that I have picked up on.
Okay. And would you say you've been taught anything or picked up things about money so far outside of school?
I've been able to pick up a few things from family and from friends and mentors around me. My parents and grandparents and close family members have made it a point to stress the importance of budgeting, the importance of managing your money, not going into debt, that sort of thing. But I haven't had any kind of formal training or any kind of financial advisor speak to me about managing money.
Well, it still sounds like you're ahead of the pack. So kind of as a follow-on to that, it's hard to know what you should know if you don't know it. But having said that, what do you think you should be learning, or what would you like to learn about personal finance and money management?
I would like to have a more in-depth knowledge about budgeting, about allocating money, where it should be going, how much should be going into savings accounts, or how much should be staying in checking, that sort of thing, and just general money management and the importance of staying out of debt.
Sure. And I think the good news in your case is that, as you said, you're already working and saving a little bit of money and having to spend it on a few things. And you're kind of getting that training now by doing those things. And sometimes in life, you kind of have to learn things the hard way where you just do it by trial and error. It's nice when you can leverage the experience of others and learn without the failure and use their failure to then just skip that step of the process. But sometimes you do have to go out and fail yourself. Hopefully that's not with losing all your money that you save.
Let's hope not.
But I think having that experience where you get to go out and do it yourself is definitely a valuable one.
Sure.
So given that you're 16 and in high school and college is fast approaching, do you have any idea what you want to be studying in college and why?
I think that I would like to go into some sort of liberal arts field. My goal is to end up in some sort of design, whether that be industrial design or architectural design or interior design, anything in that kind of wavelength. Art has always been a passion of mine, and I also like the drawing and the geometric side of things, so I think that that will be a good fit for me if I end up there eventually.
Okay. And you're hoping that what you study that you can use later on in life, or is that too far out to think about?
It's a little far. I'm not totally sure. I'd like to have a career of my own for a little while, but my goal would also be to start a family eventually and homeschool my children. So the career would only, if it worked out, would only need to be for the first few years of my life out of college.
And there's also after the kids go off to school.
Sure, yes.
You want to have something to do too.
Yes.
Well, that's very forward thinking of you, I would say. You know, a lot of people think they know what they want to do when they're headed to college. Then they get there, they change their mind.
Sure.
Then they get a degree, and then they change their mind again. They get another degree, and they change their mind again. So you got plenty of time. Are there any ways that you would say that you're, quote-unquote, preparing for college right now?
One of the things that I've been trying to do is attend the semi-weekly college meetings that they have at my school. College admissions officers are brought in from around the country to speak to some of us, the students who sign up for these college visits, where they share information about their colleges, campus life, the programs of study, tuition, boarding, all of that kind of thing.
So when those people come in and they're talking about the colleges and how great they are and how this is the only college that you should ever want to go to,
Sure.
do they ever talk to you about how much it costs and room and board and all those things?
I think some of the admissions officers do. A lot of them don't bring that up because I think it's kind of a touchy subject, or it's a subject where they would like to avoid talking about, maybe because their university is expensive or more expensive than some of the other competing universities. Most of the time, students will ask about admissions, ask about tuition, ask about financial aid, that kind of thing, but it usually is not brought up by the counselors themselves.
Yeah. And are they ever speaking with the parents at all, or is it this is only to
directly to the students? Yes, the students sign up and leave class during the day to come down to our guidance office and speak to the college admissions officers.
Well, I would say my personal thought on that is they hope that they get you as a student hooked on the idea of their school before the parents have any say on the cost of it. And therefore, you just go to the parents and say, I want to go to this school regardless, and you don't care what it costs.
I think that works with a lot of kids.
Yeah. Well, in your case, do you think money will be a factor at all in your decision in where you end up wanting to go to or deciding to go to college?
I definitely think so. Even community college options are still expensive, so I would say that considering colleges that are local or in-state or have a significant amount of financial aid is important to me. I would not like to come out of college with a ton of debt. I would like to have that paid off soon, if not come out debt-free, so that's definitely something that's important to me. But I don't think it would be the limiting factor when choosing a college.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, I think you're well ahead of the curve in terms of having any kind of this kind of thinking before you even attend college. So I think you're on the right path. What are some of the steps you think you can start doing now to help yourself to get there so that you are able to come out of college debt-free?
I think that there's a lot that can't be predicted ahead of time, but one of the things that I've been trying to do is setting aside money from my paycheck each month into a savings account, and will hopefully be using that towards college eventually. I know that family members have been saving a little bit along the way, but it's definitely going to be up to me to work my way through college, to pay my own tuition, that kind of thing.
Well, just as a follow-on to that, I would say it's a good thing that you're starting to work now so you get used to that. So save as much as you can while you are working now. That's one. Two is be working hard in school, which you're already doing. Three, if you can get any credit for college ahead of time in high school, that goes a long way for having to reduce the amount of classes that you end up having to pay for, the credit hours in undergrad. Four would be applying for as many scholarships as you can when you're applying for schools. So when it comes to entrance exams and then scholarships, make sure you're putting all the effort you can in to try to qualify for as many scholarships as possible. And then if still you're going to have to borrow money to pay for school, which is likely, then make sure that you're on top of student loans, applying for those and getting federal ones that are at the lowest interest rates possible.
Sure.
And then when you're in college, you might end up having to work and study at the same time. All those things together will help you to get to where you described you would hope to be at the end of college in terms of your finances.
Sure.
So I was going to say, it's funny that when I ask you about if money is a factor in your decision for college, and you say that it actually kind of is a little bit, I would say that is unexpected in the sense of a high school student your age. I wouldn't expect them to normally be thinking about how much college costs or even to have the perspective of that kind of responsibility. And I think it's the case a lot of times, even from a family that's of lower to lower middle income background, still kids in the U.S. often feel like they have the opportunity where their parents are going to provide everything for them. So in my sense, I feel like that can cause the feeling for a high school student where they don't have to worry about paying for college or worry about money at all because their parents are going to provide that for them.
I definitely agree. I think that there's a lot of kids my age who are too dependent on their parents. I definitely think it's important to have a good relationship with your parents and to be able to turn to them when you are in need and when you're in need of help or advice or even financial help. But I also think it's very important for kids to be learning to be independent financially. I think that a lot of kids are not concerned about the cost of college because they think, oh, well, my parents are just going to pay for college for me, so I won't have any debt and I won't come out of college with any debt and I'll just be able to get a great job right away. And in a lot of cases, that's not what ends up happening. So I think that it should be a concern of parents to be teaching their children the responsibility of being an adult and living on their own and what it means to manage money and the importance of being financially independent from their parents.
And what philosophy would you say your parents have taken with you? Or rather, what have they led you to believe in terms of what to expect and how they will support you and that kind of thing?
My parents are going to be an emotional support for me, a support where I can talk to them whenever I need to, someone I can ask for advice. And they are going to provide what they can financially, but a lot of it is going to be on my shoulders. And so I've already been considering or thinking about how I'm going to be providing for myself and paying my own student loans and that kind of thing, even with the help of my parents.
But basically, it's not to expect everything on a silver spoon.
Sure, yes.
And so because of that, that sets your way of thinking where by not planning on having everything fed to you on a silver spoon, that you have to go out and achieve things for yourself and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and preparing things, right?
Correct, yes.
And I think that's a healthy way of doing things where then you don't become perpetually dependent and try to figure out ways how you can provide for yourself. And there might be some difficulty along the way where you feel like things are tight at times, or it's a struggle, or you feel like you have to work harder than it seems like is worth it, but it will be worth it and you will be able to do it. So if I can provide you that encouragement ahead of time, here it is.
Thank you.
You've told us about yourself, but what do you feel about your peers and other people you know, your friends, or maybe not friends, but just other people in high school, their way of thinking, some perspective of your peers, I guess?
I think it's a little concerning that a lot of kids my age don't have any concern for the cost of college. I think that a lot of them are going to get a reality shock when they get into college and they realize that they have to start paying money, that tuition is due, and their parents aren't going to provide for them. So I think that it will all turn out in the long run, but I think a lot of them are going to get an initial shock when they get into college, or even after college if their parents are able to pay for their tuition into the real world when they have to start working and they have to buy themselves a car and buy themselves a home, pay rent, that kind of thing. So
See, that's where I think the real shock comes in, not until 25, 30, 35, when even if you've had college paid for, but especially if you haven't, you have student loans and you're just paying minimum payments on those. And eventually, once you're starting to really be on your own and the loans have built up, that you start to realize how significant that is and the impact of that. And unfortunately, there's such that lag of 10 to 15 years it takes you to find out the impact of your decisions all the way back from when you're starting in where you are now. And so to me, it's valuable if you can be making the decisions when you're where you are at the age of 16 in high school and saying, this is the path that I'm hoping to take, or at least the direction I want to set myself in. And by doing that, you set yourself miles ahead of people who aren't thinking that way or preparing in that manner. So I think it's really valuable. And to have the perspective that you do, I think you're going to go far, kid.
Thank you.
I forget what movie that's from. All right. Any last thoughts before we go?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Glad to have you on the show. That's all we have this time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Post Money Plan podcast.